woke up with like the most random thing on my mind. I was thinking about, or I thought about one day, when I met somebody, just they were like a stranger essentially. I don't know if it was at work or outside or in a store. I'm not really sure the whereabouts of where I met that person, but I was talking to them and it was a good conversation and things were like butter. It was, effortless. It was a great conversation. And then I had a flashback to all the interactions that I've ever had that went wrong because people don't understand how I operate as a person when I first meet someone. Um, so to give a little background, in the past, in lots of different dynamics, they've always been kind of difficult for me because I'm how would I describe myself? I'm like a newborn walking around the world, trying to navigate how to properly do things so that I don't get burned, or I don't keep touching the hot stove or whatever the saying is. I don't really know it right now, but so in the past I have heard a lot of things about myself. I had heard a lot of things about myself after the fact. I've heard that I was manipulative. I've heard that I was being nosy. I've heard I'm being too flirtatious. I've heard, probing for information to like use against people. I've heard lots of weird things like that. Um, I've also heard like I'm like very sexual based, and I've heard lots of different things about myself, all of which are not accurate to how I actually am. But anyway, so the reason why a lot of people would say those things about me is because they didn't understand how I operate as a person when it comes to meeting someone and how I go about doing that. So when I meet somebody and I really like them, or I like their energy, or whatever the case is, I am kind of intense. So what I mean by that is like I ask very thought provoking questions right off the bat. I'm very probing. I'm very inquiring about your life and you as a person and blah blah blah. So it can, I guess, it can come up as very intense sometimes, and kind of like, I guess the way I can describe it is like when you have a first date, those kinds of questions. Like they're very probing and very sometimes very intimate questions about your whole person. So I found out late that people don't do that. Like when they first meet somebody out in the wild, wherever they meet them, people don't ask questions like that. And I didn't know that. So what ends up happening is people get the wrong impression of me right after the conversation, or even during. Like they think that, oh, I like them more than I guess more than that's appropriate at that time, because obviously we just met each other, so I'm not trying to like date you or anything, or there's no attraction there. So people would think, oh, she likes me, she wants me, or she's like really really attracted to me, or she wants to, like I said, she wants to date me, or oh, she's being flirtatious, maybe she wants to hook up or something like that, because of how I am when I first meet people, or rather how I was, because I had to like make adjustments. And then that ends up triggering me because I'm like, well, no, I'm. This is just how I operate. This is how I, get to know people. And apparently, that gave me kind of a bad rap with people after the fact. Like, I would find out later because people would think those things. Like, I was trying to manipulate them or probing them for information, and I was too flirtatious. Like, why are because the questions were too, I guess, in depth. Like, people upon meeting people for the first time, they don't ask questions like that usually, and I didn't know that that was not normal to be like that. So then I kind of struggled a lot for years getting to know people because they would have the wrong impression of me right away based off how we would meet. So yeah, I had a lot of trouble with a lot of different dynamics because I didn't understand the the norm of how it usually goes when people meet people. When all I was doing was like trying to be myself, or getting to know people the way I like to get to know people. So again, I've had to make a lot of adjustments. I've had to learn how to read body language now. Uh, in the last years because I have to like look out for those cues of when okay, no, you gotta put up boundaries now, or no, you should probably stop the conversation right here because they're doing this now with their hair or smiling too hard or some shit like that. I don't know. I kind of look for all that stuff subconsciously now, so that I know, okay, no, it's gonna turn into this because they did this, so you gotta stop it here before they get the impression that it's something that it's not, or that you're blah blah blah, or whatever, all the stuff that I used to be accused of back in the day.